So this is above all a story about equity. Equity for those who most need education. Not those who could go without it, but those who most need it. And this is the part that the Ken Robbins followers, imitators, don't quite get right. And that's not their fault. They haven't studied it enough. And to really study it, well, we have to go back to the basics, and we need to go to science. And if we're going to talk about science, let's go back, way back to my beginning. The same year that I worked in this swimming pool here, that's now been closed, I also worked in a magnetic resonance laboratory. It looked a little bit like this. Okay, that's not me with that hair. Nor are those CRTs the ones we had, because we didn't even have that. Now, that sort of lab looks like this, and the one we're more concerned with, an fMRI, a functional magnetic resonance imaging unit, looks more like this. Got to visit one of those a couple years ago, about 70 miles that way, in the heart of Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon, in their Center for Brain Imaging. And of all things, I was there the week after Alan Alda had visited to find out what he could show for the PBS about brain imaging and what we know about today in 2017 or 18, what goes on inside people's heads. It was fascinating, not the less because I ran into one of the guys who worked there, Tom Mitchell, who had written the textbook on machine learning, with my professor of machine learning.
Mikulski.
And I got to catch up with him all along the way. What we've learned since from brain imaging and from other scientific experiments on how kids read is just fascinating. And not at all what people expected. Nor did it take a machine like that to figure that out. The earliest experiments actually go back to the 80s, and a guy named Guy Van Orden. Those experiments are much simpler and even more fascinating. And I produced a little video on that because I couldn't find one, and I urge you to check that out too. Those are only one of many different scientific experiments that apply to this. And I'm not going to go into those, and if you're curious about some of them and their results, I've actually spent the last year developing an app, a phone app that goes through some of that science and goes through how that meshes into the teaching pedagogies of today, the ones that are the most useful and the most equitable. And that's the part that matters, the equity. It's really hard to know where to stop with that segment. Obviously, there's so much there. Go on forever. There are two quick points I want to make before we wrap that up. One, some of the neighborhoods that are the most beset by problems. You know the names. You know the cities. When you go through those, and if you look, almost all the time, their K-3 reading levels, their 4th grade, their 8th grade reading levels are abysmal. And some people say, many important famous people say, well, it's just a reflection of their poverty. That's not true. It is when they start. It doesn't have to be when they leave 3rd grade. The things we just mentioned here are the very explicit keys to getting kids through that. And can't get every last one of them, but we know now. We couldn't prove this 20 years ago, but we can prove it today. Do the right things in these schools, And nearly all those kids will come out reading and with a good shot of arriving at high school with the abilities they need to make the most of it. And I just want to mention one particular piece of evidence that most people I don't think know of. And to be honest, it's such a comprehensive and large study and event that it's not been repeated. But I think it's still worth noting and memorizing. And it's called the West Dumbartonshire story. West Dumbartonshire in Scotland. And it really is an amazing tale. They went through, and it's a large area, and for 60,000 students, they gave them all the reading and literacy support that science and good teaching and good curriculum tells us we should be able to give them. And at the end of that period, the number of kids who couldn't really read was 6. 1 in 10,000. Right now in America, most of the experts will tell you if you're hitting 96, 97%, you're doing pretty good. 1 in 10,000. So we'll move onward from here. Lots more to see, lots of exciting stuff, and some real solutions to come. Take care. Stick around. Enjoy.